we're diving into a remarkable story of scale and transformation from one of the world's leading biopharma companies. So they're already on stage because we thought we'd be efficient with time. Our speakers from AstraZeneca will share how they're driving performance improvements, digital adoption, and cultural change across their operations. Moderating today's discussion, who will introduce the panel and the session, is Olivier Néron, who's our Global Industry Practice Lead for Life Sciences. Please join me in welcoming them, and let's get going.
So welcome for this session. So I think that's going to be my best session of the week. Not because I'm hosting it, but because we have the AstraZeneca team here. So what's a little bit special about AstraZeneca is they won for the second time in a row the groundbreaking award of Tulip for a project, or let's say a program that's called CDO, which is a Digital Changeover. And before we start fire chatting, we have a small video to play from Jim Fox. And Jim Fox is the SVP of America Supply Operations. So if you could.
Hello everyone, I'm Jim Fox and I have the privilege of leading AstraZeneca's America's Supply Operations, and I'm the global sponsor of our digital and AI transformation. I'm really sorry I can't be with you all today, but I thought I'd record a short video ahead of the fireside chat with Tim Holbrook. So personally, I've been working with Natan and the Tulip team since around about 2018, and I'm really impressed with the super innovative trajectory that this company is on and the partnership that we've been able to create. AstraZeneca, like other pharma companies, is on a transformational journey itself, and this is to reimagine how we develop, make, test, and supply our medicines for our patients and the planet faster, better, cheaper, and more sustainably. For this, we've needed to reduce waste and improve productivity throughout our entire supply chains. We've simplified, standardized, and we're well on our way to digitizing the way we do work. And we're really honored to have received this prestigious Greenhouse Award again this year from Tulip for the development of our Digital Changeover solution. Our sites are all actively using Tulip, and we regard it as a super important frontline operations platform. It digitizes our data so that we can improve performance, and information that is kept in people's hands or on paper that can't be leveraged effectively to gain insights and drive action. It digitizes our processes so that we can drive much more automation, and it dramatically improves productivity, particularly when we integrate across platforms to simplify the operator's world. And of course, AI is the next exciting frontier, and already we're working to advance quickly in this space. We ingested all of the changeover data globally into our ChatGPT and asked it for reflections and recommendations on the digital changeover. It came back in seconds with a full report. So in conclusion, for AZ to reach its bold ambition of launching 20 new medicines by 2030, whilst becoming a net zero carbon company, we need partnerships with innovative technology companies, and we're really in a good place with Tulip as one of those at the heart of our plans. Tim will talk through now with some of the innovative transformations we've achieved to date by working closely with Tulip. And we're very excited on the next part of the journey by unleashing more of the suite of AI and agentic AI tools embedded within the Tulip ecosystem. I'll hand over to you now, Tim, who will share with you some of the great work we've been doing and plan to do in the near future. And by all means, please reach out to him if you're interested in collaborating with us in AZ on our ambitious journey. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference and hope to see some of you soon.
All right, just a small change. So we have more than Tim today. So we have Tim and an old team, I would say. So let me start by introducing the different guests here. So we have Tim Holbrook. And if I'm not wrong, you are the head of Global Make COE, the Center of Excellence. We also have Stephanie Phillips, who's the America Supply Regional Tulip Champion. Then we have Ross Townsend, who's the Pharmaceutical Packaging Global BPO. So far, so good. And last but not least, Annie Walker, and you are the Associate Director, Digital Products. All right, so welcome you all. Thank you. So Ross, I'm going to start with you. So first of all, congratulations again for winning the award. Yeah, it's a big thing. Second year that you do that with this digital changeover. Can you tell us more a little bit about what this is and why you won at the end of the day, yeah? And where you are with your deployment? Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So, first of all, we're really grateful to receive the award a second time, but the pressure is definitely on now for us to think of something new for next year, I'm sure. So, definitely got to start thinking to that. But in terms of digital changeover, so I imagine this will resonate with a lot of people here around our current, or what was our current and previous working practices. So, changeover, the way we used to govern that was through paper-based instructions. So, naturally, again, really good level of instruction set of around how to efficiently complete the task. Problem with it, though, it didn't give us any insights. Some of our changeovers, depending on the complexity, could range from 2 to 8 hours. And how do you really understand where the gaps in the performance are unless you go, the traditional route of a stopwatch, watching the entire changeover, incredibly resource intense. So that's where digital changeover came in. We've now managed to digitalize all of our tasks and actually have granular data that we can act on and understand where in our process we're seeing efficiency gaps. So, for example, rather than trying to watch an 8-hour changeover, you can narrow in and actually say there's 4 tasks in this changeover where I see constant levels of variability. And reduction in variability was really the key thing for this, that from the very start. It was how do we reduce variability, optimize areas for improvement, and then start to act on that. So since our initial deployment, we managed to scale to over 120 packing lines across 17 sites in just under 3 months. And we're now starting to explore how we expand into formulation and sterile areas as well. So looking forward to talking a bit more about the product in detail as part of this session and some of the next steps as part of that.
Very nice. Impressive numbers. Maybe one question for you, Tim, now. I hear lots of people speak about lean. Lots of people speak about digital. But you speak about lean digital, which is your strategy, which is central to the story. So can you tell us more about what has enabled this digital transformation and how you establish a governance model, because I think it's key, that support rapid, compliant innovation from the start?
Yeah, so somewhere along the journey of digital transformation at AZ, and a lot of folks at AZ are going to be very sad to hear that Natan has pronounced it dead and buried. But somewhere along our digital transformation journey, the term lean digital came about. It's common sense, so you can see it on the slide exactly what it's about. It's applying digital to your lean methodology simply allows you to move digital faster and accelerate value, as we like to say. And for anybody who's read Natan's book on augmented lean, it's clear Tulip is sort of the quintessential tool to enable that kind of thing to happen. Digital changeover is such a great example of, in the world of lean and operational excellence, changeover is always one of those use cases everybody's constantly going after, right? How do you apply standard work to a process that takes a certain amount of time and then try to figure out how to make that time faster and faster? And applying Tulip to it is exactly what we mean by lean digital. You apply that digital element to a process that pretty much plateaus if you haven't got digital. You can only go so far with paperwork instructions and collecting information on paper, maybe putting it into an Excel spreadsheet and doing a bit of analytics on it to figure out how to go faster. Those of you who are as old as me might remember the 92 presidential election with Gore Bush, and the tagline of that election was, "It's the economy, stupid." And what I say to my colleagues at AZ is, it's the data, stupid, right? That's why we're doing this. You heard Jim talk about that on the video around the idea that, or around the fact that we ingested all this data from digital changeover being executed at 17 sites, 100 plus packing lines. You take a few months worth of that data and the insights are amazing. So that's lean digital, augmented lean. Tulip is our platform of choice to make it happen. So what we're trying to do is figure out how to do it faster. That is the scaling of Tulip, the adoption of Tulip and other digital solutions. And try not to reinvent the wheel. That is what's going to happen, right? When you've got a network as big as ours, thankfully not as big as Steve's 100 plus at Black & Decker that we heard about earlier, but we've got 30 sites. You'll reinvent the wheel, and that is waste. So what we try to do through applying good governance is figure out where are the high value use cases that a lot of sites are going to want to leverage Tulip for. Build a solution in sort of a team effort with an eye towards how we would scale it and then drive adoption across the rest of the network. DCO is one of many examples. Sorry, Digital Changeover, DCO, is one of many examples. And the next 2 bullets on that list, I cannot stress enough for all of you. It does not end when the app is live at some site. You have to continually be driving that change, embedding this new way of doing something in a lean digital manner, and continually improve that product, that solution, that app. Our governance includes a lot of the folks on the stage here. So we have basically what we call a Tulip exploitation network. So each site has a representative. And the job of this group is to figure out how do we get the most out of Tulip, how do we continually evolve it, leverage new capabilities from it, without reinventing the wheel and without going off in different directions. Yeah, governance is key in that space.
All right. So now let's speak about a use case which has, I would say, a special place in my heart, which is cleaning logbooks or GMP cleaning logbooks. So Annie, I think you're going to speak about this. Can you tell us how that solution evolved when you begin to scale it? And also, as you deployed it broadly, what were the key lessons learned, I would say, from that? Because you had to basically balance the frontline operations, kind of the site requirements with the global standards of your organization, which is pretty big, yeah? 27 is pretty good. Yeah.
So the GMP cleaning app is made up of 3 apps. We have one for executing the cleaning records, one for configuring settings in the schedule, and then one for viewing the logbook. And then, of course, we have those execution tables and master data tables behind it. So when technicians use it, they can come in, they can see the cleanings that are due for the day, the last time those rooms were cleaned, and when it becomes overdue. We chose Tulip because it has really fantastic ease of reporting and sorting and filtering all of that data. Plus, it's really user-friendly compared to, say, like the paper records or MES and trying to find, information really quickly. It's not very easy on paper. So having Tulip initiated is fantastic. And you can see the cleaning agent that was used, the contact time, how long it was there, when it was completed, the operator who completed it, were there any collaborators, any comments. So anything specific, someone can just go into this Tulip logbook and look it up, and the information's right there. So our capabilities that we put into it, along with the engineering controls, is say a cleaning's overdue. We really want to capture the information about why it's overdue. So a technician can't just go in and reset the time and start cleaning. A supervisor needs to come in, make the exception report all within Tulip, and then they can upload any evidence of why it's overdue before the cleaner can actually start to clean it, so that we have that data in there. And it also provides some oversight as well.
Very good.
So how did it begin? Why did we scale up? We have over 300 rooms on our Frederick site that require GMP cleaning. So we had a phased rollout. We started in a non-critical building so that we could go in and clean up any little bugs that may pop up and make sure everything's okay. And then 2 weeks later, we started going live in our production areas. Otherwise, if we didn't use a phased rollout, it would have been a really big uplift for our site, because I think this was our first GMP cleaning, or our first GXP app that we actually made live at our site. And it's really involved, Tim talked about continuous improvements. So we make continuous improvements for it all the time. For example, we found that our technicians use tablets. So if a tablet died and they're in the middle of progressing a record, and then they came back up, then maybe that record wouldn't show up right away. So our app builder was able to go into Tulip, make a really quick fix, and we're good to go. Another thing we put in our latest version is actually requesting cleanings in app. At first, we were using a third party like a SharePoint form to go through and request cleanings. That doesn't really make much sense. We could always do it all in Tulip, so all those requests are right there.
I'm sure for many of you, logbooks are one of the first places you started as well. It's such a great use case, a relatively simple thing to do with a huge return, right? much better user experience. I don't have to fill out a paper form. I have drop-down lists. And in our industry, so we use the term GMP and GXP a lot. For those of you who are not biopharma or life sciences, it's basically, we call it good manufacturing practices, being compliant with regulatory bodies, yeah? And so you have to review all this stuff. All this data is critical. You need to know what was cleaned, when it was cleaned, who cleaned it. So not only do you have this paper floating around that you've got to archive, keep around for 5, 10 years, and somebody has to review it all the time. So it's a really great place to start. I'm sure many of you have, but if you're early on your journey, I would say logbooks and any kind of paper forms are a great place to go.
All right.
So I think the last part of that was the key lessons learned.
Yes.
Okay. So we did have some challenges with scaling. We did find that one size doesn't exactly fit all, as much as we would love for it to. But some sites, when we want to scale, some want it more complex, some want it more simple. But we are still able to use our first version as a base. And then sites can scale it either up to more complex or down to more simple. And then another idea is we could create templates to scale this further for different types of sites. So maybe have one template for different types of sites, one for drug substance, one for packing, and so on. And then maybe that would be easier to scale to additional sites around our network, to like Stephanie's region in the Americas, for example. So those are just some ideas, lessons learned, and just continuously improve.
Back to the importance of governance. If we weren't trying to do this in a centralized way, what obviously would happen is each site would have the same light bulb. Oh, we should digitize the logbooks. And everybody would make one that's slightly different. And that is, first of all, for those of you who are lean people, Tim Wood, overproduction. It's overproduction, right? You're building the same thing over and over again, when really you could just build it once and copy and paste. But secondly, you need to think long-term strategically about how these apps eventually will do more. Right, so this app, very clearly at some point, we will integrate it with our MES that we were building with Tulip as well. And if everybody did their own, it's going to be a whole lot harder for us to do that integration, right? So really important that governance is in place, that people like Annie and Ross and Steph are kind of global or regional points of contact to make sure we're working together.
I think actually it's a very good segue now our next use case, which I think is very pivotal for your success, which is what you call the external data management. So I think this had played a significant, impact or took a significant step into reducing risk for simplifying data management. So Stephanie, you, I think, were in charge of that. So what can you tell us about this, and how does that reflect actually the maturity of that phase in your digital strategy?
Yeah, managing data is a challenge for any large organization. Tim says it best, it's our Achilles heel. Manual and inconsistent practices create errors, outdated records, so it's putting business performance and even data decision quality at risk. We realized that we needed a more reliable master data application, and that was really due to Tulip being a key platform now at AstraZeneca, but the expansion of even the global application like DCO and logbooks at our sites. Our previous application relied on manual methods, which were slow, error-prone, and we really struggled to scale and adopt that solution. That's why we developed the EDM, known as External Data Management Application. Instead of managing several master data in every application, this application offers one secure sort for critical master data. And what that has done is really simplified our processes, but it's also become more of a scalable solution because it is a global application. One thing that it does, it automates updates for the sites. It eliminates duplicates from third-party systems, but it also shares information seamlessly between SAP and Tulip. And that's been key because it's delivering automated, governed, and standardized data flows that supports our current operations and even future growth of Tulip. SnapLogic is the integration layer connecting SAP to Tulip. And the one thing that it enforces is standards, but also it schedules regular updates for the sites. So they're no longer having to manually do that, it's done for them. So it has been a huge success with sustaining and maintaining this application. but it also is the backbone. It makes our processes in this application scalable. It supports all sites, and it's really preparing us for advanced AI and analytics future state. Our centralized governance, as Tim mentioned, it brings clear guidance and oversight, so it provides quicker troubleshooting. So through that escalation, ANI can provide support and also engage our global team, say if there was an issue with that application or even SnapLogic. It really has unified our operations. It really replaces manual fixes with a digital backbone that is not only strengthening our governance, but even the validation process at AstraZeneca, which is essential for a mature digital landscape.
A wise man once said, "It's the data, stupid." And this was really important for us to do this EDM, external data management, because you could see the storm coming, right? If we didn't do something to integrate our ERP system, our SAP, then goodness gracious, the amount of data that Tulip is going to need, which is coming from SAP, having to transcribe all that, it's a fire waiting to happen. So again, through this governance that we've got in place, it is a strong tie between business and IT. A guy named Shohei Terada is our hero on the IT side. He wasn't able to be here today. He's in Japan. But he helped us make this happen, working with our IT organization. So now when you go into a logbook, right, in a logbook, one of the things you're going to need to select is which production area you're in, off a drop-down menu. Well, that's all in SAP. Those are resources that's come in for you automatically. I alluded a moment ago to MES. We are currently working with Tulip and our fantastic implementation partner, Factory Talk, on building an MES with Tulip, digitizing our batch records for those of you who are in life sciences at a few of our sites. And that's another one. We're bringing in process orders. So not just master data, but also now transactional data, bringing process orders in from SAP so we can trigger the creation of those electronic batch records. And at some point, we will be pushing data back the other way. Working on a goods receipt app right now, digitizing our goods receiving process at our factories. And we want to get it to a point where we can collect the information about the incoming goods in Tulip and push it back to SAP and post our receipt for us. So really look at this, guys. All of you will have an ERP system, most of you are SAP. You got to think about your users, you got to think about the shop floor, and they're going to be really annoyed if they have to keep typing stuff in all the time. So get that integration going. SnapLogic has worked very well for us.
All right. So I'd like to come back to Digital Changeover, or DCO for short. Honestly, I think your numbers are mind-blowing. Yeah? So the number of lines and the speed at which you did it is, for me, it's like Fast and Furious. I've never seen this before, and I've seen a few things. So anyways, what were the lessons learned from this project that enabled this incredible speed and agility that you achieved?
Yeah, I think there's a few things to touch on here. And part of the reason we've put this timeline up is to really just show the overall scale of the solution that we built. And again, I think there's a saying here, it takes a village, and that was definitely the case with this solution because we had a lot of people that were heavily involved in this from the start. So taking it all the way back to 2023, it was where two of our big manufacturing sites in Sweden and UK Ops committed that to jointly develop a digital solution. Changeovers is a massive area of opportunity for us, and I'm sure many other companies as well. And what we're always trying to look at is how do we improve changeover times? How do we reduce variability and give more consistent results time after time? We tried a number of initiatives and solutions, and while they did offer some success, nothing ever landed the way we needed it to, and we really struggled to get it down in that level. So back in Q4 2023, that's where Tulip and Factory Talk were selected as the vendors of choice. Again, I know a lot's been mentioned around Tulip already, but it really is that solution that offers a really great user interface, and one that we keep going back to is when people say, why Tulip? I always say it's like the iPhone. It's really simple, has a great UI, and it's really easy for our operators to actually use and understand. And again, that's the bit that was really key for us. From the very start of the project, what we started to discuss was how do we get that user feedback from the very beginning? Ultimately, they're the ones that are going to be using this solution, so how do we make it for them and work for them? So right from the start, we had a number of operators directly linked to the project, but also feeding back continuously on what worked and didn't work. And a really great example goes back to actually the device that we use. So as part of the deployment, we tried wearables, such as a watch, quickly found out they didn't actually work because the instruction text was too small. so we couldn't actually give the instructions over. They tried wearables, how do you wear a phone on almost like a wrist strap. Again, didn't work, too heavy, couldn't get the hands in the machine to do the actual changeover activities. Tried the real wear, again, they didn't like wearing the devices for a long periods of time on the heads. So where we settled on was tablets. And that was where we actually settled on the device, and again, based solely on that user feedback. So it was in 2024, around December time, that we went formally live on our first production lines at Macclesfield and started to see some really great feedback, great results. It was at that point we presented this solution to our operations senior leadership team, who loved it. And I think some of the words were saying, okay, so this allows you to have granular level data for all of your tasks and allows you to provide good, constructive feedback to your teams and actually improve your processes. Why would everyone not want that? This is something we need to scale. And to that end, we want this to be scaled to all of our packing lines within 3 months. That's a big ask, something that we've never done before. And as you can imagine, there was a couple of looks around the room where we said, how do we go about doing this? But I think there was a couple of ways that we first addressed it. One was we had a digital playbook, and in that playbook, it had a number of advice and guidance from actually how to not only validate the solution at your site, but also the local resources needed to implement the project, considerations that need to be made based on your standard work that you're inputting. Because again, it's all about what goes into the application versus how do you get that benefit out. So a number of different guidance and procedures that we put into that playbook. But also a lot of good stakeholder management. We do have our global quality, but we also have local quality. So actually, before we even started the scaling, we engaged with all of our local quality sites to talk them through what the solution is, why there was no GMP risk, how the solution had been developed, and the validation testing for the application. So again, doing that really early on. In January, that's when our first site went fully live with DCO, and by the end of March 2025, we'd gone to 120 packing lines across 17 sites across a number of different countries. With some great results. We saw some lines actually seeing a 29% reduction in changeover time, and most importantly, a 50% reduction in variability. So from this point now, our process leaders have really good data that they can act on, they can see the discrepancies, and they know where to spend their time, where to focus, and actually, we're now trying to roll it up again to an enterprise level, so we're improving changeovers on an enterprise level, not just on a local level.
This was, sorry to interrupt, it was a really interesting moment of be careful what you wish for, right? We went in there, and this presentation happened with our senior leadership team on Digital Changeover. We're going right into, just about to get into Christmas break. And to hear that the outcome was, oh yeah, they loved it. By the way, they want it everywhere by the end of March. And we're just like, oh, great. But the efforts of people like this and a network, and this gets back to the scaling piece we talked about before. We're building a solution with an eye to scaling. So we intended for this to happen. We just didn't think it was going to happen in 3 months. And 100+ packing lines is a heck of a feat. So sorry to interrupt you, Ross.
No, and I think it's a really good point to touch on, because I think, as we've mentioned many times before, you're not done once you've got the product. And I think that's now the next point of how we continue to use this product, but also govern this product. So since deployment to our packing lines, and we're now also scaling to formulation, sterile areas, doing a feasibility study, as well as QC labs. So there's lots of areas where this application can go. But how do we only take this application and continue to take the feedback and build on it? And that's what we've got, the continuous improvement lifecycle, which we've now introduced. So this is a framework that we do where we connect all the sites, all of the regions. It's a place to share best practice. So how do we, we might all be facing a common problem. How has one site found a good solution or something that's really improved their process? How do we make sure that that's scaled? So not just the application itself, but actually the user experience and the feedback to problems that we've seen. So we're now utilizing the analytics on a global scale. We've got analytics to show us the changeover times per site, per type, all of that, again, which we can act on. It's a forum to raise enhancement requests. One thing that we're really keen, again, is to make sure that this application can be continuously improved with direct feedback from the customer. So the operators who are using this, how does that all flow up and make sure that we can say, yeah, that's a great idea, we need to scale that again and start working on that. So this is a forum we've now got for that. Again, improve benchmarking, but also identifying systems improvements for the future strategy. Jim mentioned before AI and ChatGPT. We've had a number of examples where we've pulled these reports into ChatGPT, our internal system, and it's given us a whole list of recommendations, either constant comments that we're seeing for overruns, actually the areas where we've got the most levels of variability, this is where you should be focusing. So rather than our first-line managers and teams now having an 8-hour window of a black box of where to look at, they now can say, okay, I've got 20 minutes that I can go focus and I will get a biggest reduction than I will over spending 8 hours. And that's what's been really key to this. As well as evolving the playbook, we've now got an analytics playbook which shows you how to use that data, how to act on that data, and again, just keeping that communication engagement alive. So it's been really successful and really well received. We've won a UK Farmer Award for this application now, obviously the Greenhouse Award from Tulip, and also up for another award within the Make UK Awards. So it's had some really great excitement, and we're just excited to see how we can take this further. We're already looking at voice technology. How do we build that into the application, further enhance AI? So lots of areas that we're going to take this and continue improving it as we move forward, not just in packing, but also to our formulation, sterile, and other business areas throughout AstraZeneca.
Well, we don't mean to necessarily come across as if all 120 of these packing lines are loving digital changeover and are executing perfectly and everything is rainbows and butterflies. There's a lot of work involved still ahead of us. So even though we had all of our lines live by the end of March, April timeframe, and we're 6 months later, there's a lot to do. The change journey is big. And the key, and Ross has identified this quite a lot, in going to Gemba and being on the packing lines at different sites to understand how things are going. You got to give them the why. I think that was said earlier in one of the previous speakers. Give the operators the why. Why are we doing this? And it's back to, it's the data, stupid. And if we can show them, and we need our line managers to show the operators, the reason you're doing this, additional keystroking during your process where you've got 4 other systems you're probably using at the same time, is because we're gaining insights this way. We're getting the data, and we can understand then how to improve. And we're ingesting this data into our global Snowflake platform, so we call it Operations Data Hub. And so this way, it's not just data that you leverage for your line and your changeovers, it's the entire enterprise. Yeah, 120 plus lines. That data is rich, and it's getting built faster and faster than you'd ever do before. And Ross leads a network then of looking at our changeover information from across all these lines, able to benchmark, able to identify opportunities that are themes, and accelerate value. Back to lean digital. Yeah?
Good. So choosing Tulip was the right decision.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my takeaway. Yeah. Right. Okay.
Definitely.
Now let's speak about long term, right? So we haven't talked too much about AI yet, but let's do it now. So what is the long-term vision for AstraZeneca, particularly when it comes to technologies like AI? Sorry.
Yep. So I think system integrations are a really key one here. So again, from going to Gemba, really trying to get that feedback. One thing that we're constantly hearing is that these applications are great. So digital changeover is one example. We have lots of other examples, again, of great applications, but the feedback we get from the operators is, but they're currently in isolation. I have to do one app. I have to go to the other app. I have to go to the other app. They're massively improving my previous way of working, but I still have to go to the individual applications. How do we start to integrate these? So from a Tulip point of view, how do we start to bring these together to make it sort of a manufacturing ecosystem of applications where it naturally takes the operator or the team to where they need to go to next? So that is something we're really keen on, not just with Tulip, but also some of our other systems. And actually, how do we then bring new applications in and say, where does that fit? So again, not just building an application for that application's sake, it's building it to enhance that ability and the experience of our teams. So something that we're really keen to focus on now as part of our roadmap, and some great examples that we've already got coming up in the pipeline. It's been great to see what we've already spoke about earlier, some of the the AI that's being built on, that we're definitely really interested in that because there's so much more we can use for that. So yeah, definitely system integration is really key for us on that. And again, user feedback, I can't stress that enough because that's where that's come from.
We are getting to a point where rather than feeling digitally enabled, I think a lot of our shop floor is starting to feel digitally encumbered. Mm-hmm. It's in biopharma, we have this thing called the digital plant maturity model, and there's sort of different levels of digital maturity. Yeah? We are so stuck in digital silos, which is where you've got all these, and we seem to be adding more silos because it's, there's all these digital ideas, but we need to get to the next level of connected factory. Yeah, and so in digital changeover, for example, these operators they're navigating between Tulip for DCO, they might be navigating over to a different Tulip app for a logbook entry. They could be going into our MES, our non-Tulip MES that we have at some sites. And we have a Traxxas environment they're using for OpEx data capture. So these poor operators, right, are like all over the place. And it's just, it's driving them crazy. So systems integration, I would encourage all of you, think about user experience and how you can make it as seamless as possible so that your operators are not having to navigate across multiple systems, often making redundant entries. Yeah, get through that for sure. Another element of our forward roadmap is tapping into AI. We are so excited at the AI generator in which you can feed it a PDF and it'll turn that work instruction into a digital solution in Tulip. We heard that loud and clear several months ago. AZ are mobilized, just chomping at the bit, waiting to be able to start exploring that. When I saw today the other version of that with the video, wow, my mind is blown. This will allow us to scale so much more quickly and again, create value a lot faster. So the AI in terms of generating apps for us will be fantastic. And then back to what Jim said and Ross has echoed, the AI element of being able to pull all of this data, the data stupid, and give us insights, right? Push it to us. Because I think what you find is for your frontline managers, even when you do give them all this information, when do they have the time to crunch through it? So if we can push it, right? If GPT can just on its own do that analysis and send Ross, the line manager, a view of like, hey, I checked out your changeovers for the last 2 weeks. This is something you should look at. Go. Yeah, that's really key. Got to take this data, use AI for it to be able to gain those insights and drive improvement more quickly. And how about hands-free?
Yeah, I think it goes back to that direct user feedback. Something that we really, well, operators are very well outspoken about is you're asking them often to have to leave the line to go execute either some kind of Tulip application, a legacy system. Something that's really going to support change management is a hands-free future. So voice enablement somehow where they can say maybe complete next task, but we've really got to integrate that into future state. So again, it's hand freeze, it's not removing the operator from the line, and we can get real-time data, especially as we want to use data analytics future state. We need this kind of hands-free technology to embed in, I think, all of our applications.
Yeah, Ross spoke a bit about the feedback we got as we tried different technologies for how the user engages with these apps. The watch was too small. The phone mounted to your arm was cumbersome and got in the way. The RealWear type of solution what was difficult to work with. But just a good old-fashioned headset, it turns out, with a microphone is a great way to go. So that is something we'll be exploring for DCO and other apps. And you can think in the long term, 3, 4, 5 years from now, the factory talking to you over this headset, telling you what to do next. Hey, I've detected this issue is starting to come about. I've detected a problem with the heat is increasing on the ceiling plates. Go over there, take a look at it. And then operator says, help me debug this. And it just walks you through a troubleshooting over the headset because your hands need to be free. So tablets are great in certain situations, but on the shop floor, that's not fun. Right? You're carrying around something. So we reckon hands-free is going to be really big for user experience and efficiency on the floor.
And I think one thing that's really important to touch on that point is, again, when we had that time on off of digital changeover and how long that went on, you can see it was almost 2 years ago. Voice technology and hands-free was explored then, but it wasn't where it needed to be. But things have moved so quick in such a short space of time. So I think it's really important to look back sometimes and say, actually, okay, this application is working great. How do we go back around and look again? How do we check? We still really want that. We know it's there, but how do we keep that on the peripheral, say, let's keep an eye on that because we're still aware. So sometimes it's going back around that loop again to say, how do we take this application further? And we're already doing that now with Digital Changeover. We're on version 1. We're already exploring now and doing workshops to say, with even more feedback, what does the future look like? How do we embed AI? How do we embed voice technology? So again, just going back around that loop is really important for that.
So we talked a lot about the operators, but let's talk about how we can stay sustainable, especially with our internal skills. And that comes back to upskilling new app builders and making sure they feel, providing them with the tools and the knowledge that they need to succeed and making sure they feel confident with it. And one of the ways we do that is with hands-on workshops and hackathons with realistic use cases so that they can learn, kind of go through a whole Tulip app and how to build it with a real use case. So they have a real app at the end that they can take back to their operational areas and also be able to improve existing apps as we move forward. We also have the community of practice, our Tulip networks, and then citizen development programs. Also, I think setting up a good working relationship with your QA, your process owners, your subject matter experts, even if they may not be the app builders, they're still going to be part of that discovery process and requirements and that user testing. And so I've met some who are a little timid about, or a little hesitant. What is Tulip? What does it do? It's so customizable. What are we supposed to do with this? So I think making some knowledge sharing and visuals and really talking them through, showing examples of these non-app builders can help them feel more comfortable and confident with our path forward with it.
Back to the importance too of governance. In this citizen development world with platforms like Tulip, you do have to be careful, right? With great power comes great responsibility. The idea that kind of anybody, quote unquote, could build some apps, gotta be careful. Some folks are gonna wanna try to go really deep, really complex, and sometimes you gotta protect themselves from themselves, yeah? App design doesn't come naturally to everybody. So for the same reason that we've all read an SOP that was written by somebody who should not be writing, right? It's the same thing is true with apps, right? You have to have that certain mindset around user experience, around simplicity of the graphic design of the screen. Annie's fantastic at this stuff. She's taught me many times how to simplify communications and get messages across in things like PowerPoint. But that's unique, right? Like Annie's got a certain skill set. She's really good at this. So you got to find those people. Not everybody should be building apps. Everybody theoretically can, doesn't mean they should. So take care there, right? Citizen development does not mean every single one of your 150 operators who work at site X should be building apps. Find the right ones and kind of light their fire. Get them excited about how to do it, give them the tools, give them the training so that you've got really good apps out there that are actually adding value. If you've got stuff out there that is being built by folks who shouldn't be doing it, you'll have the exact opposite effect. People will be turned off by Tulip or whatever the platform is you're using real quick, and it'll fall on its face. And get the balance right on how much you're going to do internally on app building and where's the tipping point where you should be using somebody with a bit more professional skill. So our MES solution, for example, we certainly wouldn't want to try that internally at this stage in our maturity. That's why we've got Factory Talk as our implementation partner who've got that next level of expertise. So make sure you got that balance right as well. I think my final piece of advice is for those of you who work in regulated industries, you need really good quality partnership. Unfortunately, my counterpart in the quality organization wasn't able to be here today, a guy named Bob Buellman, but he is very progressive, and that is key because you need your quality organization with you and helping enable this change. It is big change, right? From a culture that loves paper and SOPs and all those things to go into this space is challenging. So to be successful and to drive that forward strategy, you got to have really good partners there as well. Great. Thanks.
So with all this good stuff, yeah? I'm not going to wait 2 or 3 years to see you back on stage, so I expect to see you next year.
I said yesterday, we're going to go for the hat trick. We got 2 years in a row with an award, yeah, so we're going to try again for next year, yeah?
And with the next release, it's going to be dead easy.
Yes, and we've just moved over to Tulip Cloud. We'll be going to LTS 15, I think it is.
15, yeah.
So really excited to exploit some of the new stuff.
All right, excellent. So I think we have 5 minutes left. So I don't know if there is anyone in the... Yeah?
Are you deploying apps?
Oh, can you go to the mic? Sorry, because I think they're videoing this for... Yeah, thank you. There's a mic there and a mic here. Super.
I was wondering, do you deploy all your apps in English or multilingual? And if they are multilingual, I guess what challenges do you have?
Ross, this is all you, man. Go. Yep.
So yeah, I think it's a really interesting point because part of the 17 sites, I think the languages that we've used digital changeover in is English, Spanish, Portuguese, Japanese, Chinese, so Arabic, so lots of different languages. So we do use the Tulip interface to do the translation. One challenge that we have faced is around the user interface. Some languages' words are longer than others, and that has been one of the challenges that we've had to try and face. So what we tend to do when we do scale the solutions to different areas is that we use the Tulip one again, and it does work really well, but we do get almost a local language expert within the sites just to sort of do a check over of the application and make sure that it has translated correctly, and then we bring that over. That's from a main application user interface point of view. The standards that they upload for their changeover, they upload them locally, so they would upload them in their local language, so the operator only does see that. But yeah, the only challenge we have is the user interface, and when we try and build the application, we do try and take that consideration, actually make them slightly bigger than they would need to be just to account for that.
The feedback I got from sites was that they're pretty amazed at how well this thing works because there's like pretty technical terms in these apps, as you can imagine. I'm sure you've seen it yourselves. And so to be able to take an app and have that Tulip's translation feature function as well as it did, and the biggest issue being, oh no, the word's too long and it doesn't fit on the screen anymore. Okay, well, we'll take that. But yeah, for digital changeover, which went to 17 packing lines, we had 6 or 7 different languages. And then, for fully global apps, I don't know if we've had a fully global one yet, actually, but there you're at 30 sites, so we'll have a few more languages to take into consideration. But it worked well for us. Yeah.
Good question. Thank you.
The others.
I love how you guys are using this as a solution for people that are on the floor, but this is key to the IT group. So can you elaborate on how your journey has been with IT from, hey, we want to look at this thing and have them bring them along and some lessons learned from their perspective?
I wish Shohei was here. He would do a much better job here, so I'll try my best. So firstly, I would say that IT are equally enthused with this platform. About 6 months back, Jim, who you saw on the screen there, came here to Tulip in Boston, along with one of our senior leaders in IT who owns manufacturing in other areas of our operations. And they went through the TEC, Tulip Experience Center. They saw what it could do, and our IT executive was like, whoa, why is this not on the strategic platforms list, as it were? Because up until then, he thought, well, this is just like low-code, it's like Power Apps, like I don't really get it. So they're fully in. And so much so that we're we had to quickly address things like high availability infrastructure, how are we making sure, what's our response time if something goes down, because we could be stopping manufacturing sites from running, and the integration across platforms and the adoption of other technologies that come with it, like most recently landing AI, I think was one that we explored. And I would say that IT are fully on board, completely partnered with us, and absolutely see this as a key IT platform for the company. Yeah.
I think we can do one more question.
One, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
This is a little tall. I do have
I
a
know,
questions
I know.
about multi-site deployment, because you use one app and maybe you continuously improve on the app. So how do you govern because you have multiple instance on different site that you deployed at, and then if you want to make one change on one side, how do you govern those change or bug fix and things like that? And also something that I heard is very interesting that you guys was talking about is you were able to fix bug on the production immediately, and then that's something that I'm also interested in learning as well.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to take the first part, definitely on that. So, yeah, I mean, again, we're linking back to digital change when we scaled. What we first did, we had version 1 that we started to scale to all the sites. But remember, when we initially scaled this, we'd only deployed to one line. So quite quickly, we did start to get some immediate feedback of actually how it could be improved. What we've got is a global instance where we have a standard saying the actual core application stays the same. Once we get that feedback and we gather it, we would then update the version. So when we deployed, we were on version 1. We're now deploying version 3.2. As it's called. When we call it a number is a major change, so that's a change either to the triggers, the UI, or something quite significant. A minor change through our TLS process is something a bit smaller. Again, might just be a slight change to the UI or just a look change, a look and feel, but not really anything too big. So what we tend to do is we would collect that feedback. What a problem is for one site tends to be a problem for most sites, and we'll have that communication with everyone. Back to the reason we've got that network. So we meet monthly at the minute. We do take requests sooner than that, but that's when we go through what's been the feedback, we go through the analytics for the month, and then we start to take that forward. In terms of future versions, what we're going to start to do, we're currently looking to run workshops this month and next, and we're going to do a bigger update to a version 4 that encompasses a lot more improvements. But again, that's all just coming back from the site. So we do keep them on the same version where possible all the time. Otherwise, unless it's a very minor change, that's a localization, but we're trying to avoid that because most of our packing sites, they're packing sites. There might be localizations in their actual work instructions, but that's what goes into the application, which is separate. The actual application itself, we do try and keep that as standardized as possible.
Steph, why don't I throw you a leading question here real quick on instances. Are we, to this woman's question, multi-instance, single instance? What's the way we do things?
We are using multiple instances. I think there's challenges and benefits to that strategy right now, but I think our governance really, maybe you were talking about quicker troubleshooting, because of our kind of governance structure here and support and a system we have set up, each site, each instance has a Tulip champion designated for that instance. So I'm at Mount Vernon site, I'm their champion, but I'm also the regional champion. So we're able to kind of escalate through our governance when there's troubleshooting. I've often found most of that troubleshooting is more change management. How do I use this application? Just kind of walk me through it. They need more coaching there. But then also through kind of our SOPs and work instructions, there's clear guidance on, is it really a change management? Like, how do you use this application? Or is it an actual system issue? So we need to raise a ticket, and then I'm going to escalate to my counterparts in the region if they're having a similar issue. And then I'm engaging Tim or even Shohei, our IT product owner, to say, hey, we have, depending on the urgency, we need this resolved, fairly quickly. So through that structure, it's really, I think, proven that it's more standardization, but we are really resolving a lot of issues more quickly than before because of our structure.
And each site's on its own instance, but we have a central dev instance. Yep. So if we're trying to build something like DCO, which we anticipate scaling to many sites, then that really helps us, of course, right? We can do central dev and then deploy it out to the instances that would like it. But it's not perfect in terms of like, well, how do you keep everybody corralled then as changes occur? We have a global instance as well that we use for some use cases. Lots of pros and cons. We're out of time already, so I won't bore you with it, but we could talk at lunch if you want. I know we're not hard stop. If you guys have any more questions, we can keep going. Otherwise, I guess we're getting over to have some food. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
I think you should discuss it because they have way more instances than you do. So I think it will be a good lunch.
Okay.
Thank you for the presentation. Any of your application does have connection to any external tools or sensors, monitors? How's the experience?
We absolutely do. You want to talk about computer vision real quick?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the applications we've got right now, we are sort of looking at that again as to how we start to integrate them. One that we're really keen on at the minute is computer vision. It's something that we're really trying to explore. One thing that we've seen on a lot of products that we've tried to deploy or develop on that is that it's very actually difficult to scale. Based on the nature of you have to tell it what a defect is, tends to be the main problem. How do you know a defect is until you've got it? And how do you trust the solution is going to find those defects if you've not seen that defect before? So that's one big problem that we've got. And what we're now trying to explore, again, with Tulip and potentially is what solutions can we link in using that Tulip platform that can be scaled much more quickly and also give us what we need in terms of that overall pack visibility. So we've got a bit more work to do. When we talk back to integration, that is definitely some of our next steps, is how to start to use this further and integrate to some of our existing systems. But something like computer vision is something we're really excited to try and explore because, again, we've seen lots of technologies out there. Nothing's worked quite the way we want it to with their full connectivity. So it's definitely something we're exploring.
We have, we'll be working on some instrument integration as well, I think, as part of our MES. So right now, our MES is in relatively simple types of manufacturing, like packing operations. But I reckon if we get into formulation activities, we'll get into scale integration, that sort of thing. Ross and I were one of our U.S. sites on Wednesday this week, and their Tulip champion, like exactly what you want in a Tulip champion. He's so into it, and he came over to us. He's like, "Tim, look what we got." And so they just bought one of these. I forget what it's called. Maybe you help me out here, Olivia. It's like it's like there you go. He had the little hub thing with all the connectors, and he's like, "This was like a couple $100, and I can like hook up all kinds of stuff."
Too cheap.
Right. I'm like,
too cheap.
Fantastic.
That's perfect.
So anyway, so we have that is definitely an untapped opportunity. We've done a bit. There's so much more to do. And this slide here that talks about our forward roadmap is by no means completely holistic, right? Like this is kind of in the next year or two. These are the things we're trying to get after. But we can certainly envision a whole different factory environment and integration of equipment and other technologies. They're on their way. Anything else? Yeah, we got one more.
Last one? Last two?
Very quick question. What are some of the new roles or positions that didn't exist before that you maybe wish that you had actually prepared to have them when you started in 2018?
And you want to take a bit of that? Or do you want me to?
Well, we have Tulip champions, but it's not like it's roles kind of, I guess, we volunteered for that have kind of begun taking up a big part of our job, like with me and Stephanie. But I think there's more official roles coming.
Yeah. So first up, definitely having these champions in place at each of your sites is really key. But to Annie's point, the way we've had to do is like, you're kind of rubbing sticks together here. So it's more work on top of somebody's already busy day job. But what we have done is take roles. So in my team, Ross is one of what we call our business process owners. So they own at the global level a process. He owns packing. He's got a counterpart for formulation, a counterpart for sterile manufacturing. And they have a really key role in this space of Tulip exploitation. They're looking at how can Tulip improve the performance of my process. And so I would say that's really key because they also have teeth, or some element of teeth anyway, to be able to make sure that sites follow certain standards and therefore IT don't run into the typical roadblock of like, well, every site wants a different thing and I can't tell them no, so we're just going to do it. So that's a really key bit. Having an IT BA or system platform owner, we had that from day one, fantastic, and that's always been good. But what we're doing now is we're staffing a role actually for in the business a Tulip capability lead. So somebody who's going to be fully focused on the business side of things as to agnostic of process, whether it's packing or formulation or QC, how are we exploiting it? The platform. We've gotten to a point now where we need more horsepower, we need more bandwidth, more focus. So that is another role that I would say has been key. Yeah.
I think we've said a lot, haven't we, with Tulip, really quickly, is that we do feel like we're still scratching the surface at the minute. There is so much more that we think we can do with the platform and the technology. So I think that's really one of the reasons why we're getting this role in now, because we can see the potential and we can see how much process can be improved by this. And it's the great solution.
I think you have to stop us because
I think it's like the Emmy Awards where they're like, okay, move on.
Anyway, thank you very much.